Hello everybody, welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, we're going to talk about Gadwick from Throne of Eldraine. I do apologize, I am filming these kind of out of order because I had some of them filmed and some of them not, and then I scooped them all up to play it for EDH&M, and I've got this one ready to go. Now, we can all thank Mr. Chris Thompson. He convinced me to not do Stasis with this. But let's read Gadwick. X blue 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 for a 3/3 human wizard. When he enters the battlefield, draw X cards. By the way, did you know they had to rework some of the rules to make this card actually function? Because not on the stack, X equals 0, so it enters the battlefield and then it remembers what X is. So I don't know exactly what they did, but I just know they had to tweak some rules so Gadwick could work. And then, whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. So my original plan was to run this guy in like a mono blue turbo stasis kind of thing, like back in 96 or whatever. But let me show you what we got. So there's two things that this guy wants to do: draw cards and tap permanents. So that was kind of the way I went. By the way, before we get tell you what, let's just do the non-basic lands first. Is this card not crazy? I mean, for a common. Now, granted, the common, it won't be worth, a whole ton, but I feel like that the alternate version of this, maybe the foil and higher, are going to see some serious price fluctuations. But what makes it so nuts is that it's fetchable. It's crazy. But Castle Vantress, I'm also running. We're in mono blue, so that drawback isn't even really a drawback, and it does, I mean, we're tapping 5 lands to scry 2, but there are times when you're not doing anything else, so why not? A couple of cycle lands and a reliquary tower, and that's it for the land base. So we are tapping creatures and drawing cards, so let's look at our card draw section first, because this is substantial. Now, first and foremost, tell you what, we'll do creatures. We'll do creatures first, yeah. We're in a card drawing deck. We got to have our Psychosis Crawler. It's got to happen, right? Whirlpool Rider. Just trade out your hand. And it's just you, so you're not giving any more options to your opponent, so Sir Eleonora. The power is going to be huge. Yeah, the toughness is just 4 still, and if they target her with removal, it's going to be harder to target. It'll cost a little bit more. Eon Chronicler, and I have to be reminded every time that this thing does not fly. I don't know why. I've always thought it flew. I don't know. Let's look at Fairy Vandal. You draw your second card each turn, it gets a counter on. It is a flash flyer. Now, we are probably going to be able to encounter that counter. Yeah, I didn't think that all the way through, did I? On our turn most of the time. And maybe on some opponents' turns, too. So that's kind of neat. Just a good old-fashioned looter. Why not? Now, the looter is going to work. The looter is my second target. Here's my first target. Let's talk about the Vantress Gargoyle for a second. I mean, 2 mana, 5/4 flyer. I just desperately so bad want to make that work. So, it can't attack unless defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. Alright. Okay, so this makes us want to mill. And then, but it can't block unless you've got 4 more cards in hand. Well, that's not an issue with this deck. As much cards as we're drawing, we're good. But check out this tap ability. Each player puts the top card of their library in their graveyard, so everybody mills 1. Now, what I meant by targets, as far as Merfolk Looter and Vantress Gargoyle, they are the only 2 creatures in the deck that have a tap symbol on them. And I really like this Vantress Gargoyle. I really, really like the Vantress Gargoyle. So, I popped a free from the reel and a Penham's Aura, just to be able to continually untap and mill to make sure. Well, I mean, although in theory, as much cards as we're drawing, we're probably going to mill out first. This may be a deck for a Lab Man. Or maybe a few more targets for the auras, you know. That's a real thing, because I've only got 2 real creatures that I care about. There's a lot of holdover here because I had built most of the deck thinking Stasis, and then I got talked out of it. So, which was fine by me, because when Chris talked me out of making this Stasis, it made me want to do a different Stasis deck. Anyway, the rest of the creatures. I'm not going to try to pronounce this, so I'm going to call it Ophage. Yeah, that'll work. Ophage. So, draw a card, put a counter on it. That is sweet. And then, you know, Tidespout Tyrant, because you don't always have to be the nice guy, right? Well, Tidespout Tyrant does it for show. Okay, card draw. We have card draw, and is this every card type? I don't think I have a sorcery. Oh, I do have a sorcery. Okay. Tell you what, we'll go through card types in card draw. Instance. Now, I'll value the instance a little more. We all do. Just draw 2, discard 1. That's fine. But it's going to trigger your fairy that says second card. Or all your second card stuff, which I think the only one we're playing with is the fairy. Continue with the instance. We have Into the Story. This is very... if we get our I Am Superman thing off... Oh, I didn't tell you all that. Here, let's look at this. Little history about Penham's Aura. The name is an anagram for I Am Superman. And this is one of those that it's an enchantment that has all of the Morphling abilities. Now, Morphling, actually, the card that started the Ling cycle is not even supposed to exist. When they commissioned the art for Morphling, it was supposed to be clone, but the rules manager at the time said the clone didn't work under the current rules. So they had to scrap clone from the set, but they'd already paid for the art. So they made Morphling just sketched out 5 different abilities. Well, here they were looking to make an aura, and I can't remember the specifics of it, but they come up with Penham's Aura. Penham has never been addressed. Not that I'm aware of it anyway. And the reason why they chose Penham's Aura is because it's I Am Superman anagram. Anyway, I thought that would be just a tidbit of history there. So we're drawing cards, right? We're on instance. That's it for my instance. So let's go to sorceries. Sorcery, good old-fashioned draw X cards. Sometimes that's exactly what you got to do. You just got to draw X cards. And we'll move to enchantments. Of course, we're going to have that Mystic Remora, which this could possibly also trigger that 2 cards a turn thing. Ever watching Threshold attacking, you know. Thought Reflection. While Thought Reflection doesn't inherently draw us cards by itself, it doubles our card draw, so that's pretty neat. Have a Dictate of Kruvix. Verity Circle. Now, the Verity Circle works extremely well, especially with the commander. This may be the #1 synergy card in the deck because, yeah, you play a blue spell, tap a permanent, or tap a creature, That creature becomes tapped. It's not being declared an attacker, so you draw a card. So that's kind of why I like it. Now, Archmage Ascension is also not a card drawing per se, but as much card draw as we have, this again also makes us want to draw 2 cards a turn. So if we can do that, now yes, the Consecrated Sphinx would be awesome, and that is the Consecrated Sphinx and Archmage Ascension are just hand in hand BFS forever, right? But I don't have a Consecrated Sphinx. I have the Archmage Ascension, so we got to do it the hard way, right? Now, creatures. Arcanus the Omnipotent. Now, also, hey, that's right. We could also put the Superman or the Free from the Real on Arcanus here. And if we get our Psychosis Crawler out, that's game on. We got Sphinx of the Magosi. Because, you know, I realize 3 mana to draw 1 card and put 1 counter on may be off rate for this deck, but it is a decent mana sink. And then, of course, our Soul Planeswalker, Mr. Balerion. And artifacts that draw cards. We got Folio of Fancies. Everybody mills. See, this one, I think Folio of Fancies is going to find a perfect home. I don't think this is it in this deck. I think it's useful in this deck, don't get me wrong. But I just think it looks like it could totally be broken in the right deck. And I may find it. Because, you know, build them all. And then we have the Magic Mirror. You know, it costs a gazillion mana, but it kind of doesn't cost a gazillion mana. But it's slow roll card draw. But it is card draw. While not card draw, Mystic Speculation, card filtering, that's for a total investment of 3 mana. We have a repeatable Scry 3, which is going to trigger with our commander tapping down a permanent. So we can do this to clear away, you know, to clear blockers so we can get in, or we can, you know, eliminate attackers. No, we can't because it's a sorcery. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. It's decent, retriggerable stuff. Let's look at mana. Now, we're going to try out this new spinning wheel. It will tap for a blue. That's awesome. But what caught my eye was, hey, you know, it also taps a creature. Now, granted, it's expensive to tap that creature, 5 mana. But there again, sometimes, yeah, what else you doing? We have a Wayfarer's Bauble, a High Tide, because, you know, blue decks and whatnot, Star Compass, Urgolem's Eye. Now, Kefnit's Monument is also made for the deck. You know, blue creatures cost 1 less, sure. But whenever we cast a creature spell, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap. So this is going to, we got to watch how we stack our triggers here. Because we're going to trigger Gadwick and trigger the Monument to tap it, and then the Monument says it doesn't untap next turn. Yeah. Now, Midnight Clock. We're going to give this a try too. It is a mana rock that does tap for a specific color, and it has the mana dump option to put hour counters on it. Now, it's automatically going to get the hour counters, you know, once at the beginning of each upkeep. So that's, you know, that's yours and your opponent's too. So, but you can, you know, speed up that clock if you want to. And when you do, you time twister away. So, and which I think is, I don't know, I like it. I don't know if it's good design or not because I'm not a designer, but I can tell you playability wise, by the time it has that many hour counters on it, yeah, you probably don't need it for the mana anymore anyway, right? So let's look at our vast array of removal. We're going to blow through the counter magic real quick because there is a lot of it, because when you counter a spell, you are casting a blue spell, so you're going to tap something. So it gives us play on our opponent's turn. We have Confound. Mana Leak, Negate, Counterspell, Disrupt, Remove Soul, Daze, Memory Lapse, Dissipate. And I guess we can count Mindbreak Trap, although it doesn't per se counter it, it just exiles the stack. Well, if you wanted to exile the stack. Exile any number of spells. I'll be honest with you, the most I've ever gotten out of this is the one spell that I'm trying to counter, but maybe I just haven't drawn it at the exact perfect moment yet, you know? So, what else we got here? Turn to Frog. It's just to end of turn, but losing the abilities is the part I really care about. For bounce, you know, we have Snap and Boomerang, Unsummon, just to get things back in the hands. Washout. Washout is a card that doesn't see a lot of play, but we are being encouraged with this set, with Eldraine, to play more. I mean, there's a lot of monocolored decks out there, so this was kind of a meta call here that I think it's, you know, I can hit a lot of permanents with it. So let's look at tapping. Oh, nope. First we got to do Imprison the Moon, because it's good. Now, let's talk about the Jordan here, the fadeaway. This is, I mean, obviously it's a great Stasis card, but it's good for just mono blue. Now, for the same reason why, like, Mana Tithe and Mana Leak are good, simply because people love to get max value. Not a lot of people play counter Magic. Even if they're playing blue, we all want every space in our deck for something new and fun and splashy or on theme or whatever, that nobody really thinks about counter Magic. People want max value. And while this is not counter Magic, you'd be surprised the amount of times I've drawn this off the top of my library and looked around and everybody's land's been completely tapped. I was like, really? So I'll spend 3 mana and Wrath of God in blue. Okay. So let's tap some stuff, shall we? Ensnare. We are casting a blue spell, returning some islands instead of paying for it if we want to. Don't have to, force not a lot, but it is instant speed, and we can totally, you know, use it to tap all creatures. Ideally, we'd want to do this at the end of the turn right before ours so that we untap our creatures, and here we go. Flood does... Yeah, I know Flood's been around just for never, you know, but it's 2 mana, tap a creature without flying. This can be a real thing. Not really a stasis piece, but, you know, it's whatever. Exhaustion. Creatures and lands. Now, it doesn't per se tap things, but it does keep them tapped for 1 turn. As does Sleep. Sleep just, you know, sit this one out. You asleep. What have I got? Like 6 more cards here that are kind of weird. Fact or Fiction, just going to get cards in graveyard and cards in your hand, and, you know, it's just a card advantage card. I almost didn't put it in because it didn't say the draw word, so it may be coming out for when I find a better option. Now, Bag of Holding. I'll admit I made a spot for Bag of Holding as the card right after Merfolk Looter, because that could get pretty sick. Let's talk about alternate win condition in Psychic Corrosion. What about that? Yeah, whenever you draw a card, everybody else mills 2. Sweet. Yeah, as much card draw as we have. Speaking of as much card draw, Diviner's Wand. Now this is a big deal too. I mean, if you put this on our commander, Mr. Gadwick, whenever you draw a card, it gets 1/1 and flying. Oh, and it has 4 mana, draw a card. And it automatically equips to your commander because he's a human wizard. Pretty sweet, right? Well, let's look at Mana Vapors for Now it's just a stasis one turn for lands, so it's that person that tapped out that hit you, and you're like, man. I do kind of use mana vapors as, or I haven't cast it in a while, but I've used it as a lashback after somebody has done something to me, and I realize that's maybe not the way to play. But our last card's Rite of Replication, and I'll be honest why. We've got a Tidespout Tyrant in this deck, and if you can kick a right on a Tidespout Tyrant, yeah, it's pretty much game over at that point because you're going to play a spell and bounce 5 permanents every time you do. And oh no, you're going to bounce 6 permanents. My bad. So yeah, it gets really busted really quick. Oh, and you have a fleet of 5/5 flyers too. There's that. But that is what I have got for Mr. Gadwick. I guess you can see I still have my set piles for the brawl decks that yeah, check that out. Oh, try to get it. Those lands are in brawl decks. That's right. That's wild. But that is what we've got for Mr. Gadwick. Now the weird part is going to come, but since I am filming these out of order, see, I've got to do some research as to, because I had some pre-recorded and some I didn't, but I mixed them both in my play box, so I'll have to, and I was like gung-ho and starting this one. So now when I put it up here on the wall, I'm going to put it like, because it's 482, and I know 482 sits right there. So we're going to start there, and y'all will see these in the correct order. So that's going to look weird because by the time you see this one, that spot's been filled in. But anyway, I do appreciate y'all watching. To be sure and like, comment at the bottom. I mean, there's a ton of ways to go with Gadwick. There really is. I mean, while not very inventive, a blue commander that's centered around drawing cards. Yeah, we've all been there. But try to make it as fun as possible anyway, so that at least it's not, Arcanus 2.0 or 8.0 or whatever. But appreciate you watching. Y'all let me know what you think. But right now, I think it's time to shuffle and cut.